Good morning, class 7. I hope you all have revised the chapter, whatever we have done. This chapter, the Delhi Sultans, is a very interesting chapter because in the previous chapter we have been talking about South India. Here we have started discussing about North India, that is, how Delhi got its importance. And after Delhi Sultans, on they are not exactly Delhi Sultans, you can say from the Rajput Tomars, they made Delhi the capital of their empire, and that was continued by the Sultans of Delhi. So let's see, just to do a quick recap of what we have studied in the previous classes. Okay, so we have talked about the different rulers who have ruled Delhi. First of all, Tomars, who were defeated by Chauhans. Then the early Turkish rulers, whom I told you that some historians they term it as the slave dynasty, but some of the historians they refute it. The reason being that all the rulers in this dynasty were not the slaves. Then came the Khilji dynasty, which was overrooted by Tughlaqs, Sayyids, and lastly the Lodi dynasty. Lodi dynasty was defeated by Mughals, and hence the Mughal dynasty was established. So that was all we have studied. We have studied about the administration, the circle of justice. What was the circle of justice? Yes, that's right. That the king is the one who is getting who is helped by his soldiers in maintaining the empire. The soldiers they get their salaries from the revenue. The revenue was paid by the peasants who were working in the field, and they could work with their whole heart or properly only if the king promotes happiness and justice. This is known as the circle of justice. Then we have talked about the discrimination which was on the basis of the gender and the birth rights. Usually in that era the females were not given the importance, and that's why when Iltutmish's daughter Razia became sultan, people living in that in the empire, the nobles, they didn't like the fact that they were being ruled by a female. By and the other in the different empires also there were few females about whom we have discussed, that is Didda, who was ruling in Kashmir, but then they have adopted few changes in their lifestyle or in the way they were living just to get the approval from the male who were dominating the society. We have talked about Minhaj Siraj, who has written the chroniclers, who was a chronicler, and he has pointed out that Rudrama Devi, who was from the Kakatiya dynasty of Varangal, she she posed as if she was not a female but a male member. Okay, then we have talked about the garrison town and hinterlands. Garrison town is a place where a military post, a permanent military post or troop is stationed there, which helped the people in the maintenance in the administration, and if there was some attacks, they would help the king in maintaining the peace in the empire. Then we have talked about the hinterland, that is the hinterland you can say is a land which is adjacent to the city, and or that part which you can say where the people living in the empire were getting the goods and the services. Then we have talked about the reign of Muhammad Tughlaq and of Alauddin Khilji, how they have ruled, what all they have done to maintain the administration. The masjid, the mosque which was built, masjid or mosque, it is masjid is an Arabic term, and we have talked about congregational masjids, like where assembly of people they gathered for their prayer. One person among them was the one who used to deliver the speeches and delivered the you can say sermons, and people there followed him. We have compared the difference in the architectural style from initial people in the Delhi Sultans and later on. Then we have talked about the administration, how they have consolidated the empire, the Khiljis and the Tughlaqs. So the Khiljis and Tughlaqs, they continued. They had the Bandagan. Bandagan was like Band people who were carry taken who were not very well off and were bought by the rulers as the slaves, and these slaves were considered by the rulers to be very faithful, so they were trained by these rulers and they were given the important positions in the empire. Now then we have talked about uh, iqtidars and Ikta, that is, the land was called Ikta. People to whom that land belonged were known as Iqtidars, and the duty, like they had to pay the revenues, the taxes for this. This revenue was like paid to the soldiers, and these Iqtidars got these salaries from these revenues. There were people who managed, who who kept a check on the revenue which was collected from at different places by the samantas, the ministers. And then we have talked about Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad Tughlaq. I told you that Alauddin Khilji had started the market policy, which was later adopted by different rulers, in which the land was measured and the quality of the land was checked, and accordingly they were told how much revenue they had to pay, and different measures were taken by Muhammad bin Tughlaq to strengthen, although they all turned out to be a fiasco, but still there are people who feel that there are one section feels that he was, like you can say, you can call we can call him as a fool, but then there is one section which feels that the ideas which he had were very smart move, but the timings were not correct or they were not properly implemented. Okay. Chieftains and their fortification. Ibn Battuta, a 14th century traveler from Morocco, Africa, explained that chieftains sometimes fortified themselves in mountains, in rocky, uneven, and rugged places, as well as in bamboo groves. In India, the bamboo is not hollow, it is big. Its several parts are so intertwined that even fire cannot affect them, and they are, on the whole, very strong. The chieftains live in these forests, which serve them as ramparts, inside which are their cattle and their crop. There is also water for them within, that is rainwater which collects there. Hence they cannot be subdued except by powerful armies who, entering these forests, cut down the bamboo with specially prepared instruction. So this is the description given by a traveler, Ibn Battuta, who was from Morocco, which is in Africa. Then there was, sorry, then there was a Mongol traveler who came to he is very Mongol, not exactly the traveler, you can say the invader. In fact, his name is was Genghis Khan. He invaded Transoxiana in northeast Iran in 1219, and the Delhi Sultanate faced their onslaught soon after. Mongol on attack on the Delhi Sultanate increased during the reign of Alauddin Khilji and in the early years of Muhammad Tughlaq's reign. This forced the two rulers to mobilize a large standing army in Delhi, which posed a huge administrative challenge. Let us see how the two sultans dealt with. So, Genghis Khan he was the ancestor of Babur, and he was very powerful, and he had invaded these several parts of Iran. So there were chances that he could invade India as well. So these two rulers have taken steps, like you can say the Alauddin Khilji had taken steps to be defensive, but Muhammad Tughlaq has taken steps as if he was trying to be oppressive, that if in case something happens, he will take action. Let's see the comparison between Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad Tughlaq. Delhi was attacked twice in 1299 to 1300 and 302 to 1303. As a defensive measure, Alauddin raised a large standing army. Whereas Muhammad Tughlaq, the Sultanate was attacked in the early years of Muhammad Tughlaq's reign. The Mongol army was defeated. Muhammad Tughlaq was confident about the strength of his army and his resources to plan an attack on Transoxiana. He therefore raised a large standing army. So you can see the difference. Alauddin Khilji had a defensive measure, whereas Muhammad Tughlaq was offensive. Alauddin Khilji constructed a new garrison town named Siri for his soldiers. And whereas Muhammad Tughlaq, rather than constructing a new garrison town, the oldest of the four cities of Delhi, that is Kunha, was emptied of its residents and the soldiers garrisoned there. The residents of the old city were sent to new capital of Daulatabad in south. So instead of making a new garrison town, what Muhammad Tughlaq did was he continued with the old one, that was Kunha, and he asked the people living there to shift to the new capital, which was in Daulatabad. The soldiers had to be fed. This was done through the produce collected as tax from lands between the Ganga and Yamuna. Tax was fixed at 50% of the peasants' yield. Now, what Alauddin did was that he knew that soldiers, obviously everybody for survival they need the food. So for the soldiers, what he did was collected the produce from the land near Ganga and Yamuna, and there he had fixed the revenue, that was 50%. Whereas what Muhammad Tughlaq did was produce from the same area was collected as tax, fed the army, but to meet the expense of maintaining such a large number of soldiers, the Sultan levied additional taxes. This coincided with famine in the area. Now, this is what I was telling you, that his measures were not bad, but then maybe the timing didn't suit it. So what he did was same thing he also has adopted, that is obviously soldiers needed food, so he had fixed the revenue from the Ganga Yamuna Doab, but he added additional taxes there. But the timing was not appropriate because that time famine had struck the city. Soldiers had to be paid. Alauddin chose to pay his soldiers salaries in cash rather than iktas. The soldiers would buy their supplies from merchants in Delhi, and it was thus feared that merchants would raise their prices. To stop this, Alauddin controlled the prices of goods in Delhi. Prices were carefully surveyed by officers, and merchants who did not sell at the prescribed rate were punished. So, what he did was that for paying the soldiers, Alauddin had decided that he will be giving them the salaries, and then with those salaries, the soldiers could purchase whatever things they needed. But then here there were chances that merchants could raise the price of things. So what he did was the prices of things in Delhi or nearby areas he has prescribed, and it was fixed. So the merchants had to sell those things at the fixed rate. There were officers who kept a check on all these things. Then Muhammad Tughlaq, let's see his side. He also paid his soldiers cash, but instead of controlling prices, he used a token currency, somewhat like present day paper currency, but made out of cheap metal, not gold and silver. People in the 14th century did not trust these coins. They were very smart. They saved their gold and silver coins and paid all their taxes to state with this token currency. The cheap currency could be counterfeited easily. So now what happened was he also paid the soldiers the salary, but instead of controlling the price, he introduced token currency. And this token currency is like similar to the currency which we use nowadays. So instead of gold and silver, the people thought of paying their taxes. As took a smart move, they thought of paying their taxes in the token currency, and they kept their gold and silver as their reserves. And these token currency were you made from the cheap metal, and it was easily made at home. So people started making it at their home, minted money at their home. Alauddin's administrative measures were quite successful, and chroniclers praised his reign for its cheap prices and efficient supplies of goods in the market. He successfully withstood the threat of Mongol invasion. So Alauddin's administrative measure was successful, and that's why people who have written the chronicles in his era, they have praised his reign. They have talked about the cheap prices and the efficient supplies of good in the market. Now, Muhammad Tughlaq administrative measures were a failure. His campaign into Kashmir was a disaster. He then gave up his plans to invade Transoxiana and disbanded his large army. Meanwhile, his administrative measures created complication. The shifting of people to Daulatabad was resented. The raising of taxes and famine in Ganga Yamuna belt led to widespread rebellion, and finally the token currency had to be recalled. So what when we talk about the administrative measures, he because he has defeated Genghis Khan and Mongols as such, so he thought of controlling Transoxiana, and that was one of the biggest mistake which he had thought of. He had raised a campaign in Kashmir, and his army, his measures, and his army had to face the defeat, and then he realized that it was like futile to go in that area and thinking of capturing it. So he disbanded the army which he had maintained. Now, then he has introduced the new taxes when there was famine. He had introduced the I have of shifting his capital from Delhi to Daulatabad, and what he did was he asked all the people from Delhi to move to Daulatabad, which was again a big mistake. And it is said that even not even the old people, the pregnant women, the children, nobody was spared. Everybody had to move, and moving, like in present context we can say it is very convenient to go from Delhi to South India, but in that era it was very difficult, and many people died in the movement. And when he reached there, finally he realized that it was a blunder, and then he asked his people again to move back to Delhi. So after that, he had that the rest was done by the token currency which he has introduced. So there was widespread rebellion in the empire. In this list of Muhammad Tughlaq's failure, we sometimes forget that for the first time in history of Sultanate, yes, there is one thing which we have to keep in mind, that he was the Delhi Sultan who thought of raising a campaign against the Mongols, whereas other rulers, even Alauddin Khilji, only thought of defensive measures. Muhammad Tughlaq's measures were coercive, so were conceived as part of military offensive against the Mongols. The Sultanate in the 15th and 16th century. Take a look at table 1 again. You will notice that after the Tughlaqs, the Sayyid and Lodi dynasties ruled from Delhi and Agra until 1526. By then, Jaunpur, Bengal, Malwa, Gujarat, Rajasthan, and the entire South India had independent rulers who established flourishing states and prosperous capitals. This was also the period which saw the emergence of new ruling groups like the Afghans and the Rajputs. Some of the states established in this period were small but powerful and extremely well administered. Sher Shah Suri from 1540 to 1545 started his career as manager of a small territory for his uncle in Bihar, and eventually challenged and defeated Mongol Emperor Humayun from 1530 to 1540 and 1555 to 1556. Sher Shah captured Delhi and established his own dynasty. Although the Sur dynasty ruled for only 15 years, that is 1540 to 1555, it introduced an administration which borrowed elements from Alauddin Khilji and made them more efficient. Sher Shah's administration became the model followed by the great Emperor Akbar 1556 to 1605 when he consolidated the Mughal Empire. So Sher Shah died very early, otherwise, it is believed maybe the history of India would have been different. But he was a very smart ruler, and his policies were even adopted by uh, Akbar the Great for maintaining the for the administration purpose, and he is a if you have heard about the he was his administration, he has introduced a lot of things for the travelers. Lot of trees were planted on these roadsides, then the shelter homes were made, and the the Grand Trunk Road, which was the construction of it was started under his reign. So a lot of things had been done when he was a ruler. The idea of three orders was first formulated in France in early 11th century. It divided society into three classes: those who prayed, those who fought, and those who tilled the land. This division of society into three orders was supported by the church to consolidate its dominant role in society. This helped the emergence of new warrior group called knights. The church patronized this group and used them to propagate their idea of peace of God. The attempt to direct warriors away from conflict amongst themselves and send them instead on a campaign against the Muslims who had captured the city of Jerusalem. This led to a series of campaigns called the Crusades. These campaigns in the service of God and the church completely altered the status of knights. Originally, these knights did not belong to the class of nobles, but by the end of the 11th century in France and a century later in Germany, the humble origin of these warriors were forgotten. By the 12th century, nobles also wanted to be known as knights. So, initially, the three order which was introduced in France was like in the 11th century. It divided the people into three society, like three groups. One was who prayed, the other was who fought, and those who tilled, that is the peasants. Then these order was supported by the this was supported by the church. And what happened was later Muslims had captured the city of Jerusalem, and then the campaigns began, that is the fight began, and they were called the Crusaders. The knights, they had fought and they got the importance. After this, they did not only belong to the class of nobles. They were originally, they were not from the nobility, but then later on they were given the importance of the nobles, and later nobles also wanted themselves, because the knights were respected, so nobles also wanted themselves to be called as knights. I'll send you the answers to the questions. Please do them in your copy. I hope you have understood the chapter. If you have any problem, do let me know. I'll sort it out. Thank you, class. Take care of yourselves. Be safe at home.